Time Flies by Dennis Beck, MHS 75. I think last week I may have, or 2 weeks ago, I said he was MHS 76, but he was 75. Christy, a year ahead of you. Susan, a year behind you, 76 and 74. So, welcome to Marshfield's Old School Times with Lyndall Fraker again this week. And we are honored to have two very important people from Marshfield. Grew up here, live here, work here, and well, it's sort of work, I guess. Kind of works. Retired, but Susan West Newcomb.
That's correct.
Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
And Christy Lewis Jones. Welcome.
Thank you.
I was telling them as they entered, I think we've had more hits on our Facebook invitation for this particular podcast than we have with anyone else. So they're pretty important people. And if you don't believe it, just ask their spouses. But anyway, we're gonna have some really have some fun today. The good thing for me is I do know these two ladies, and while they're just a tad bit older than me, just a little, we ought to be able to entertain the audience today with some of the stories from days gone by, and hopefully everybody will enjoy this time together. You know, the thing we want to remember is we're trying to document history. We want to get Marshfield history specifically down in the cloud, so to speak, and so future generations can learn a little bit about Marshfield and those of us that grew up around here and what it was all about. The culture of Marshfield and our community and our county is extremely important, and that's something I think we're losing nationally, is the culture that we all grew up with, and we need to try to capture some of that so the future generations can understand and share in that. So with that, we're going to get started real quick. First of all, we're just going to kind of start with a little bit of background. We like to just kind of give a little biography of our guests. So Susan, I'll start with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your folks, your family, and growing up on Locust Street in Marshfield.
So I feel like at this time in my life, maybe I ought to be searching for my burial plot because I am the oldest one here.
Not by much. Come on.
Find my place out in the cemetery. But I grew up here, born and raised here with my brothers. My dad was a pharmacist there at the Shields Pharmacy. My mother met my dad while he was a pharmacist, and she worked in the pharmacy for him. So that's how they met, and they got married. But, you know, I was born and raised here, went through school. I went to college at MSU, and then fortunately, I took a job with Niagara for 4 years after college teaching, 6th grade. And then R.A. Barr called me and asked me if I'd like to interview here. I did, and I accepted a position in 5th grade. And I taught for 28 years here in Marshfield. Awesome. And I loved every minute of it. And then I married Rex, and we've got 2 kids, and they went to school here. And unfortunately, they've gone outside of the Marshfield area, but they're close by.
That's
and
right.
So
yeah, that's
how it started for me.
Well, that's awesome, and you certainly are sort of a legend, you know, at Marshfield schools. I mean, whether you want to admit that or not.
I don't know about a legend, but I can tell you a lot about the things that went on within these brick walls around here. I'm glad they don't talk. Maybe they do. I don't know, but oh my, you know, this was R.A. Barr's office here. Mm-hmm. Not R.A. Barr. I'm sorry. Our counselor,
Mr. Ballard.
Yeah. George Ballard.
Right.
And
right.
I might have spent some time in here. And it wasn't choosing classes either. But,
well, I never knew of you being too awful ornery. Well, you were ornery, but not like a major troublemaker.
Well, I was led by her brother and my twin brother,
yeah.
who were both in my
we
class.
might want to hear more about your twin brother.
Yeah, you'll hear about them. But
well, Christy, how about you? Why don't you give us a little bit of memory lane on your growing up here?
All right. Well, I was born in Springfield, but have lived here all my life. Mom and Dad moved here just about a year before I was born, and grew up here on Bedford Street, and we have great stories of a great neighborhood on Bedford Street, and Susan was just around the corner, and I also have 3 brothers, so she had 3 brothers, I did,
wow.
And so we were just in the mix of it. The Thomases were down the street, and 3 boys, and then Denise came along a little later, so she had 3 brothers, but we were just one of the guys when we were out playing and stuff. But yeah, I have 3 brothers. I went to Central Missouri State University in Warrensburg, and after that, my first teaching job was in Butler. and that's where my parents grew up, strangely enough.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get away from them because I guess I look a lot like my dad because everyone would say, "Are you DeLis's daughter?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am."
Oh, well, that's probably right.
But anyway, I was there 4 years, and then Kevin went to physical therapy school at MU, and we moved around several places, but ended up in Lebanon finally. And I had 4 years of teaching in Butler, and then 23 in
23
Lebanon.
in Lebanon. Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and then recently I've moved home to kind of help with mom and dad.
Sure. And built a new home out there.
Yes.
And beautiful, beautiful place out there. So tell us about a little bit quickly about your siblings, your parents. I know your mother, Naomi, was a native, right? Her family was
She was a pastor's daughter. My grandfather, Otis Patton, preached around the area, and I think he's probably even preached a time or two in the condo, which is now the Jackson
Yeah,
Grill.
that's right. That's
And
right.
so, but I've got 3 brothers. My brother Bob is 12 years older than I, and he passed away several years ago. Mike would be 6 years older than myself and Mark, and then he passed away. Actually, when our first daughter, I was pregnant with Mallory. Mallory's now 33, so he passed away 33 years ago.
Wow.
And Katie, our youngest daughter, actually was born when Bob passed away.
Really?
So it's kind of a
Bittersweet.
yeah, it is
Sorta,
bittersweet.
yeah.
But they were involved in school. My brother Bob played football here, and he was a Eagle Scout here in Marshfield, along with Steve Eiler and a bunch of them. And then my brother Mike was really heavily involved in band and stage band, and that's actually went to school here in this building, and we have a beautiful stage, and that's where every time at halftime the curtains would open, the stage band would start playing.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal.
Yeah. We've
I
talked about
love
that
to hear a
before.
stage band.
We've talked about that before. When the
Yeah.
acoustics in there were phenomenal, when it was full of people and the smell of the popcorn and the
And
band. I mean,
exactly.
it was just
And everybody pretty
Glad
much
to
stayed in
hear
their
you
seats.
say
They
that.
didn't want to get up because you got
Right.
the stage band
right,
performing.
Right. Yeah.
And and then I've got my twin brother. God help him. He's in Kansas City, but he's doing well. He likes to come back. He comes to the reunion. He comes the 4th of July. And this is just a phenomenal town. You know, I don't know that you really have to be born and raised here, but we were blessed to be raised here.
Sure.
Our Christy mentioned our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was one of a kind.
It was that typical, what was this?
Mayberry type
Yeah,
thing.
well, yeah, Mayberry, and some of the movies. What's the one where the boys played baseball and threw the ball through the window and whatever? You know, it was that kind of a '60s,
Right,
1960s
right.
atmosphere. And of course, my grandmother lived
Right?
there on Bedford
Right.
Street, right, just a door or two down from Christy's and her folks, and so it was just a phenomenal time to grow up.
You know, interesting on Bedford Street and Locust Street, we had the Oberlanders, we had the West, we had the Lisses, we had the Baumgartners, we had the Greers, we had the Arthurs, we had the Halls,
Thomas's.
the Thomases. And so it was kind of interesting because every season, that's the sport we played. So if it's basketball season, we all play basketball.
Right.
And baseball, we all play
Don't
baseball.
forget Keith Hale, the Hales.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Kevin Sullivan.
And
Yeah.
yes.
Right,
And
Ronnie
so the other thing that was interesting is if the West kids were out of line, there was always a parent of
Oh, yeah.
somebody's that would rein us in.
Right.
I mean, they kind of watched out for us, and
My grandma Rose looked out the window one day, and she looked over to the Thomases across the street, and Craig Thomas was climbing up on the chimney and was playing Santa Claus, I think is the story. Now, Craig would probably tell a different version, but so she made a quick phone call to Gene. She made a quick phone call to Noel. He comes home and gets him down off the chimney, but I think he was going to go down it, you know.
I don't know how many outbuildings and homes we climbed with Rodney Newton and Jerry Newton and Melanie Mickelson. Pretty much didn't take part. She was always kind of getting on to us for it. But we played kick the can and hide and go seek.
Mhm.
And then when we got tired, everybody just went home, didn't tell the person it was it.
Yeah, you're right. Melody and her brother Rodney Rader, he played those.
Yeah.
And the Newton boys. That Johnny Brooks, God rest his soul, one of the reasons we started this podcast because we had breakfast together for 25 years at on Saturday mornings, and
Cool.
we would talk and rehash old stories. And Johnny had so many that we've now missed the opportunity to get down. But one of his stories would be Bedford Street, and he was older, but obviously Joe Brooks and the rest of us would be playing, and of course they would hear that clankety clank, clankety clank, clankety clank. And your brother Rusty had a leg brace
Yes,
in
he
those
did.
days.
Yep.
And Johnny can tell that. I mean, it's just like you were there. And of course, Rusty outgrew that and
Yep.
was fine. But it was fun to hear
You
him
know,
tell that story.
One of the things when we'd be playing, and I was usually over by Christy's house and the Thomas's house because they had a huge field in the back that we could play. But my dad had a whistle. When it came time to come home for dinner, he could step on the back porch and he had a certain whistle.
Yeah.
We're kind of like dogs. We knew to come. But Christy's dad had a whistle too. And he knew how he had a certain whistle with his mouth, and he blew it. They knew it was time
They
for
knew
them
it
to
was
go
time,
home.
yeah.
Talk
that
about
is-
trained.
Absolutely. Fantastic stories. And of course, Susan's heard me say this numerous times, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Susan and Christy always got picked to be on the team before many of us boys, me especially. Might have been a Thomas boy or two. Maybe Eric Hall would beat him out, getting selected ahead of him. But after that you guys were pretty much the next ones everybody wanted on your team because you were both very athletic and you could hit the ball. Susan, you could hit the ball a mile.
Well, we grew up with 3 brothers each, and so it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had natural ability, both of
The
you.
Thomas kids were really good to always play
They
and play
were,
the call
yeah.
and get us in there. Joe Brooks was always good about
Yeah.
it, and everybody on the street. So they just always include us. We were just
Right,
one of the
right.
pack.
It
Right.
was never, you're a girl, you can't play.
No, it
never,
never was.
like that.
Oh, no.
Never
I
was.
mean, even football, that was my favorite. I loved playing football. I'd given anything. However, the first time I'd have gotten hit in a real game, I probably would have quit. But
Yeah.
I mean, we played tackle for many, many years, and then
Yes.
finally played touch
Yes.
after that. But
Yes,
loved football. It was baseball, basketball, and football
yes.
all year long, one or
Right.
the other.
Yep,
It was a great
absolutely.
neighborhood for that.
And of course, you had a horse.
Yes.
And I think Eric Hall reminded me that you could bring that horse down Bedford Street every now and then. Right?
I
There comes
always
Christy on
polished
her
its hooves for her and combed it before she'd go to horse shows. They'd take me, Dee and Don would take me with horse shows to the horse shows with Christy, so I'd get the horse ready for her.
Yeah. That's
Well, she was instrumental in, I was riding the horse, I was running and shouldn't have been, but I think she was on her bike and she had met me and wanted me to come
Right.
over. And so I started running on blacktop, which is not a good thing. And anyway, got in some gravel and I started turning and he fell with me. It was on Easter
Yes.
Sunday. She runs into somebody's house. We have no idea. She didn't knock. She just ran
Right.
in and
Yeah.
said, I
Right.
need to use the phone. And anyway, Dr. Tommy, being the wonderful doctor
Oh,
he
yeah,
was all
yeah.
those years, came into the clinic
Sure.
and Dad took me in and had some stitches and messed
Yes.
up face. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Did you
just-
keep that horse on the Cudamelka land down there,
yes,
or the
yes,
Jenkins land, or whatever it was?
yes. I
Across
think
from
they
Cudamelka's.
rented from
Yeah,
Cudamelka's.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
yeah.
So, how about school? Both of you obviously went to school in this building. You were the first class to graduate from the new building. So
Yes.
you went 1 year over there, but 3 here. All in high
Yep.
school. You went all 4 here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall memories from school? Now, of course, you both played basketball.
Actually,
Uh,
I didn't play basketball. So the interesting thing was they started volleyball my freshman year. That's all we had. We didn't have track. We didn't have anything.
You didn't have Title IX yet.
No, and I would have
Right.
loved to have played those, but I did
She'd have
play
been
volleyball.
So
awesome.
you were
All
in the
4 years.
inaugural
Junior
basketball
when they
team.
finally started.
Yeah.
Junior, okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Yeah,
So the picture that I posted earlier was of volleyball.
volleyball.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
And
interesting.
that's like one of our PE uniforms right there
Yeah.
that we wore.
Ooh, was that
Right.
that one piece thing you
Yeah,
had?
well,
You
yeah,
put that
I know.
on?
I know.
Unitar was that like a unit something?
That's
I
all.
don't know.
That's all we had.
Squirt, unisquirt or something.
Yeah, that's all we had.
That's interesting.
And my mother, she played basketball when she was in
My
high
mom
school.
too.
People will say,
Yeah.
"Well, did you play basketball?" No, we didn't have it then.
So they had it in the 50s, and then
Yeah.
sometime
it
in the
went
60s
out.
it went out, and
Yeah.
then they brought it. Obviously,
Mhm.
Title IX brought it back, which I think Title IX was passed about 1971. So
Yeah.
yeah, something
My
like that.
basketball college coach was instrumental in helping with Title IX.
Yeah, yeah. anything that you all can think of in this building that, I know there was some pranks played. Susan, you were always in on some kind of a prank. There had to be some stories that you can recall of.
Yeah, I've
classmates.
got too many stories. I really kind of need to forget some of those stories. But, I'll never forget being in the bottom ladder. I think it's the bottom floor. I'm not even sure. But we had a teacher, and it was an English class. But over a course of the year, we kept picking at the mortar until we finally got one of the bricks out. And so we would leave a note in there and then put the brick back when he wasn't watching. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe they don't even discover this. But we had shavings and stuff around it to kind of to hide it and things. And oh my gosh. But I tell you what, this building, you were up and down it everywhere. This was a great building to be in.
Yeah.
You could say poor Mr. Barr, but you know what? I think he was aware of everything.
Oh yeah.
I think he knew everything was going on. Bill Walker was a principal, and bless his heart, he was good as ever to work with.
He was, he was tougher. My memory was he was tougher, in his early years. But then as he got older, and then of course after he retired, he was just the greatest guy in the world.
Oh yeah.
But both of them, they just knew how to administrate. I mean,
Absolutely.
They knew exactly what to do to keep the teachers and the students and the parents all on track. And because you think about the 60s, maybe just a little bit before us, with Vietnam and the anti-establishment movement.
Right.
The 60s when it came in, everybody had the haircuts and the dress. Girls wore the dress. But by 1972 or 3, it was all the hippie movement, long hair. I mean, you think about having to be a school administrator during that transitional time in our country, let alone Vietnam.
Well, there's a time where we couldn't even wear pants to school.
Right.
We could wear culottes or you could dress.
Yeah. It was,
but that was, we had the band out back and home ec next, and then the lunchroom and everything. And I go to that room now where band used to be, and we had a pretty big size marching band.
Oh yeah.
And
how they all fit in there.
And the instruments.
And that's where we're going next. Christy, your dad, Mr. Lewis, Franklin D. Lewis, the unbelievable band director for how many years? From the 50s to the 80s. 31 years.
Yeah.
Put Marshfield on the map. I've always said there's about 3 things that 4 that really kind of puts Marshfield on the map. And, the bands from that era, the high school bands, and then certainly girls basketball and boys as well in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And then, of course, the birthplace of Edmund Hubble, and then the presidential visit by George H.W. Bush.
Yes.
Those are 4 things that you can go to Jeff City, you can go to anywhere in the state of Missouri, and when you tell them you're from Marshfield, Missouri, oh yeah, that's birthplace of Edmund Hubble, or that's, you had the president in the parade, and girls basketball, so forth. But there's no question that what he did to lead the bands in those days were remarkable and touched a lot of lives. I mean, including my brother, who's a very talented musician. But what was it like being the daughter of a legend during those days? And then of course, Susan, you were in the band, I know, and by the way,
so when
Susan brought this today.
When they got rid of these, I love these outfits that we wore. I don't know if everybody did, but it's an outfit that you could take the top layer off, and then you had essentially a tux, and then you were in the concert band. But
kind of remarkable, really. It's kind of a brilliant.
Go ahead.
Well, since you brought that up, I remember, you practice, and then you have your first football game, and you have your suit on with the hats. And I remember the first time thinking, oh my gosh, where do I go? Because you couldn't recognize people.
Mm-hmm.
You had never had the hat on before with it pulled down so low, and it was very terrifying. I remember the very first time as a freshman doing that precision drill, and you didn't know who to go between because you couldn't. Everybody looked exactly the same. So I said something to Dad once. I don't think he ever changed it, but I said you should practice at least a couple of times with everyone having that hat on because you couldn't see much.
That's
so
right. I was actually in the band too for 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. Then
you were a trumpeter.
I had trumpet, and I had other ideas.
So I got to tell you funny on myself. I shouldn't tell it, but I'm going to tell it. Our first year, I'm a freshman, and I'm lined up under the south goalpost. I'm right under the goalpost. And I mean, Mr. Lewis made sure we were exactly X amount of steps away from each other. And Gail Colmar came through, marking us off, make sure if you didn't need to move a couple inches or not. I was so excited. And the football game's still going on. He had us ready to go. So when the game ended, we were on the field. Well, excitement just overcame me, and I started peeing. And it went down my leg, my right leg. I'll never forget this. And it soaked my sock.
That's why we do these podcasts.
And I moved my right leg. I picked it up and put it back down. How many people we have in the band then? 120, 150?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all the way around. Well, guess who got nailed after the game for moving their foot?
No.
As a matter of fact, so much so that I couldn't even march the next game. I had to set out.
Oh my, you were
Because
suspended for
I
peeing.
moved. And it devastated me. But I tell you, Mr. Lewis came over to the house and he kind of felt bad. But he had said, I don't care what happens, don't move.
So you told him what
I
happened.
eventually told him what I didn't tell him then. I was too mortified. I eventually did tell him. He's laughed. I've laughed. You know, he did what he had to do. I never moved again. I think if a snake had bit me, I'd not moved again. But I'll never forget.
Right.
There was a lot of commitment. I think the same thing is true with sports teams. I think the same thing is true with drama. I think it's the same with VOAG and FFA, the commitment and
Right.
camaraderie you make. But with band, it was the same way.
Right.
We were a family. We had parents volunteer to travel with us. And I will tell you, it's the best of times.
Yeah, it was. You know, though, one thing I've thought about our era, though, being the children of the greatest generation, or the Korean, which was the silent generation, they called them. My dad was Korea. But all those, you know, your dad was in the service.
My dad
Your
was.
dad was in the service. Mister Barr, Mr. Walker, all those guys. I mean, they instilled that determination and dedication like you have to learn in the military, you know. And then to be a good band member, you had to have that discipline. And I think that's something that, I'm not saying we don't have it today. We do in many cases, but maybe not as across the board as we did back then.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. You know, I think our bands do a good job. I certainly don't take anything away from any of our events at school and
Right.
stuff. But you know, sometimes if I go to a parade, and I'm not talking about Marshfield, I'm talking about any band.
Right.
I mean, is that lined up? Is those diagonals? Are they there? I mean, we
Even the
practiced,
uniforms,
and we
you know.
practiced
Yeah.
early every morning, and our parents made commitments to make sure we were there.
Right.
You
know,
they
it's
make
like-
lots of commitments to get you to all your events.
It's like church or like anything.
That's exactly right.
You know, everybody there was a regiment, there was decorum.
Yes.
You know, like people, you wore the uniform and
Yes.
it was perfect and it was pressed and so forth. And today they might have a deal where they wear a t-shirt and shorts
Right.
or something, which, I mean, that's fine, but if that's what
If
people
that's
want,
what
if
they
that's what the
want,
culture
yes.
dictates. But there was just something about growing up in that era. And of course, you look at old pictures of Major League Baseball games, you know,
Uh-huh.
prior to about
People.
1965, and the men had on a tie and they had on a
Yeah.
fedora hat. Black and white picture at a ball game.
Right.
You know, now in some cases, people barely have any clothing on.
That's
in
exactly
some
right.
cases.
So I remember during those high school times, we would have concerts up on the square in the summer.
Oh yeah, those
And then
were great.
afterwards, you put all the chairs away and everything. And so Mr. Lewis would always say, well, let's go take our bath at the James River. So we went to Belfort, took a bar of soap, and that's where we took our bath. And,
No, I didn't do
and
that.
certain
I don't
times
remember
he'd
that.
say, you
That's
get your
cool.
Sunday go meeting clothes on.
Yeah.
And there's some people our age don't know what Sunday go meeting clothes
Oh
are.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wear jeans to church now,
Sure,
but
sure.
it was just kind of interesting.
Yeah, the U.S. House or Senate, now this is a little off subject, but just to throw in another anecdote on that, you know, they changed the rules to allow that one senator where
Yeah.
he's from to,
Yes.
you know, to wear, that's utterly
Right.
ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
my 8 years in Jeff City, you know, we had to wear a jacket, we had to wear a tie when we were in that chamber.
Uh-huh.
If we were in session, that was a decorum. That was something that's important enough to say,
Right.
we're not changing
Yeah.
this.
Take
And
pride.
I think they were wrong at the U.S. Congress
Yeah.
to do, or the U.S. Senate to
If
do
you
that.
don't want to dress up, don't run.
Right, right.
I
So
think that was a good word you just used, is the pride that
it
we
is.
took.
Yeah,
It's the-
exactly.
and I'm not saying kids don't have pride.
No, no.
I love to listen to I go
Just
to
different.
all the plays at the high school, and their one word is pride.
Yeah.
Well, even with those uniforms, the band uniforms, I mean, when we had them on, they were buttoned up.
Yeah.
We didn't undo any of it to look sloppy, if you will.
Right.
I mean, we had that on, we were representing Marshfield and we wanted to look nice.
That's right.
That's what it was all
Our
about.
spats were clean.
Yes, they were.
Spats.
Yeah.
Do the kids even know what a spat
Probably
is?
not.
I doubt
Maybe they got
they
a spat
do.
on or
And I
something.
remember going to the Carthage Maple Leaf Festival, and it had poured down rain. The field was mud, and we wanted to do our best, so we took our shoes off. We had our black socks on and our spats, and we marched in our socks because we knew we could grip the ground better.
Is that right?
Oh
And
my!
then after we learned from rainy days, we started using our softball cleats. A lot of kids bought cleats because we knew the field was going to be muddy. So, okay, be sure you bring your
Right.
cleats in case the field is still wet.
And her
Wasn't it-
dad always had these videotapes, so there's corners where people are marching, and you turn that corner exactly 9 degrees. You don't want to fall.
Yep.
And didn't Dan Brooks and Anna Mae owned the cleaners?
they did.
And then I think
They
maybe
cleaned it
Jim
for us.
Strauss. I was getting ready
They
to say,
cleaned it
weren't you
for us.
allowed one cleaning?
Yes,
They probably
they-
donated that. Who knows?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and
I don't
that's
know
a
if the school
lot
paid
of
them or not,
uniforms.
but then if you got it dirty more than the one, then you had to pay for it yourself or
Right.
something. I remember something. It's,
Yeah,
Again, just everybody pulled together. The community got behind anything that went on like that in the school or whatever.
One of my, sorry, real quick.
yeah,
One of
yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite pictures, and I don't know which yearbook it's in, but the band won at, I don't know if it was Carthage or SMS, but anyway, my favorite picture, Scott Richardson and Chris Young hoisted that up on their shoulders and was
I
carrying them
remember
off
that.
the field.
I remember that. I'm
And that's
sure
my
it's in one of
most
them. Yeah.
favorite
Yeah, that's
picture
great.
of all.
I remember going to MU and playing at halftime at the MU game when I was a
Now, did you
freshman or
get to do
sophomore.
the Kansas City Chiefs game
I didn't do
when they
Chiefs,
played the
no.
Jets?
and we didn't.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, the best part about that, Susan Abbott has always been a Joe Namath
Oh yeah,
fan,
yeah,
always.
I remember that.
Even as a small child, and Kansas City was playing the Jets, and
Right.
of course Joe Namath was playing, and the band sat on the field, and we were on the side that Joe Namath was on, and she was just beside herself. She was in heaven.
Yeah.
But that was a great memory from
Did
band.
you see the
as well.
podcast with Susan and
I
Pat?
did not.
Oh,
I'll
you
have to
gotta
go
watch
look
it.
that up.
Pat's unbelievable.
I
really
bet.
is unbelievable. So you guys went to college and you played basketball, right?
Yes.
I'm assuming you get a scholarship.
Yes.
Awesome.
20 games of experience. That's all I had. 10 years in junior year. 10 games my junior year and 10 games my senior year.
Is that right?
I was fortunate enough to get to play.
And
Yeah.
because you didn't get. Well, you played high school though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I
Um,
mean though. It was 10 years. 20 games of experience before going to college.
Yeah.
That was it. They played more than 30 in a season now.
And they took you
My
on.
friend
it.
Eric
That's
Hall
not
I
good.
know.
My
they
friend
took
Eric
me
Hall
on.
happened to send me a picture, and I've got
Oh.
to show this. It's a little hokey how we do it here, but we get her done. So here is Christy,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
college at Central Missouri State,
That was my freshman year.
her freshman year. I'm sorry that it's not the greatest quality here, the way I'm doing it, but that's Eric. Eric had that in his archives, by the way. So,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Oh, shoot.
little
too
article there
funny.
about you. I told him I would show that.
You know, we played for a number of years for State Farm.
Uh-huh.
Softball.
Yeah, softball here. And played against Aaron's Insurance and a whole slew of people here.
Century.
Yeah.
Well, and that got started by Coach Brandstetter. One
Okay.
summer, he offered softball during the summer for kids to come and play, and we were not on the same team then.
right.
And I'm going to say we were about sixth grade or so. I
Yes,
don't remember
yes.
for sure. So 6th grade, 8th grade.
I think I remember that. Some
And
of my
then-
classmates were
Yeah,
playing too.
and I remember playing with Janice Jones, Wardy Jones'
Yeah.
sister. She was an excellent pitcher, and that's really the only player I can remember playing
Yeah.
with.
Well,
but then
I-
shortly after that, the city started
Yes.
women's softball, and that's how
Softball was really big in the 70s.
Yes,
and I was
in
a catcher for Loretta Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And you
Oh,
almost
my
you almost
goodness.
needed 2 gloves.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Loretta Hall. What
Yes.
yeah, she was
Absolutely.
fun. I liked her. She was fun. She'd call me up every now and then, like if we have a garage sale, or if she'd buy something at a garage sale, ask me if I could fix her cassette player or something for her. You know, she was really great. So then you both got married, some probably around the same time, maybe close to the same time. When
Christy got married first.
81.
81,
Uh-huh.
and Susan, you were
83.
83. So,
Hope that's right.
and of course, you mentioned Kevin earlier, your husband Kevin. And
Yeah.
he's a physical therapist.
Yes,
Yeah.
he started out as a teacher and taught for 3 years and said, I want to go to physical therapy school. And I was kind of like, why didn't you decide that while your parents were paying for it? So anyway, we went to MU and I went ahead and got my master's while we were there, and it took 2 years for him to get his
Yeah.
PT degree back then. And his second year was all clinical work, going wherever to do his rotations. So I got a teaching job in Lebanon.
Mhm.
This was in 85.
You taught PE.
I did, yes. Junior high PE, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
And then after he did his clinicals, he got a job in Springfield, so we moved to Springfield for a few years. But if we had to do it over again, we would have moved here, and I would have continued to drive to Lebanon, and he
Nice.
could have driven to Springfield. But we moved to Springfield, and then we ended up going to the Kansas City area for a while, and then we landed in Lebanon.
Right. Did you ever coach any too?
I did. I was a head basketball coach in Butler and junior high track.
Uh-huh.
And then when I moved to Lebanon, I did 7th grade volleyball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Susan, you
I got married in 87. I just got to thinking about that. Because Mary was born in 89. Well, that messed that up. I got married in 87. And then I went to Niagara for 4 years. Actually, I was so excited to get out of college. I did the 5-year route in college. I think my junior year, my dad called Mark and myself both home and said, you're ending it. So we decided to declare a major our junior year, I think.
did you graduate around 79 from college then, maybe?
Yes,
So,
yes. And so I took the first job opening that I ever found, which was Niagara. I was
Yeah.
thrilled to have it.
Yeah.
I lived in Springfield and rode back and forth, still friends with a lot of them, but they treated me just like one of them down there. And when I came into Marshfield, and I got a 5th grade position. And actually, I've been in what's now Hubble. I've been in Webster. I've been in every hallway of all of those buildings.
Mhm.
And then we built a new building, and I went to Shook.
Shook. All through the
Yes.
buildings. Yeah.
hmm And I've just stayed connected, doing things here in town.
Well, and you subbed for several years till COVID
did.
came around.
I did. I subbed up until COVID, and then I quit because, like everybody, if I had subbed and got COVID, then Rex would have to stay home too and shut the business down for a while.
Yeah.
That just wasn't going to work.
That's
So I ended up subbing. But probably and you probably see this too. One of the greatest things is just to be out in Walmart in town, and people will come up and say, "Are you Miss Newcomb?"
uh-huh.
Or Miss West, and that's even worse. I mean, that's dated. And I'll say, yeah, well, I had you. Like, oh my gosh, okay,
Yeah.
who are you? And how might have I, corrupted you?
but I mean, really. for
But
them
I
to
love
do
seeing
that,
the kids.
They
I
probably
love
wouldn't
them.
have done that if they wouldn't have liked you.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
That
really,
may be, but I
it's really
love
flattering,
people that I've had in past years to come up and say, hey, I had you, and then I'll say, well, whose class were you in? Then we can start telling stories.
Yeah.
And that's
Um,
fun. That's a lot of fun.
You remember Dixie Keltner?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You know,
Talk with her.
She just passed away a couple years ago, but
Yeah.
I had her for 6th grade, and she was pretty feisty back then. I mean, she
Oh
was
my gosh.
nice looking lady, sharp. I mean, she put you in your place.
So on the
And-
morning before school one time,
Yeah.
she went into McDonald's, and I don't know if she lost her underwear or if she lost her slip. It just fell down. So she just walked off.
But you have
Oh my
Dixie
gosh.
Decker and Dixie
Yes,
Keltner.
I started teaching with them.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
I
so
loved
Dixie
them.
Keltner. So I hadn't seen her for probably 40 years, now 30 years maybe.
Uh-huh.
And when I ran for state representative, I had part of Greene County, so I had to go to Greene County Republican stuff. And lo and behold, she was there one night at a Greene County
Yeah.
Republican event.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I hadn't seen her since school. And
Yeah.
of course, she had Stacy as well as a student.
Yes.
And he and I ran against each other our
Right.
first time, and we had a nice conversation, but I just couldn't believe it had been that many years. But she, and then of course I kept in touch with her over the years as I
Yes.
would attend different events.
Yes.
But I guess where I was going with that was, even after 40 years, students come up to a teacher, and,
Yeah.
and she was influential in my life. I mean,
Right.
there's no question about it.
Right.
That was sixth grade, and
Right.
Eric Hall and Beth Beth Walker was
Yeah.
in that class. We had a great
Kathy
year that year.
Cunningham.
Kathy, all those
Yeah.
folk, but they were in that particular classroom, out
Right.
of this, at that time, 4 classrooms,
Right.
we had a good
Right.
year, but
Oh my
Um,
gosh, so many memories
Yeah.
with a lot of these teachers that were here at Marshfield.
yeah, we've just really been blessed at Marshfield to have
We
a
have.
lot of great
We have.
teachers, and they still do. And public education gets sort of a bum rap today in many cases, but then
It does.
when you look back, and you even looking where we are today, I mean, we have a wonderful community, and we have great people, and public education has played a big part of that.
It
And
is.
if people would stay off of social media and stay off of talk radio and quit listening to some of the jargon that's out there. Now,
Uh-huh.
there's some legitimate things going on, and that's where your school boards and your legislators and people have to stand up and go, no, we're not going to do that. And
I think teachers in some respect have shot themselves. Certainly not all teachers, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Right.
Come on,
right.
get it
That's right.
together and quit doing some of the things that get done.
That's right.
And I understand why parents get upset, but for the most part, I'm very pro public school.
Yeah.
I think the kids get to meet other kids. I think that's where you form a lot of your bonds. I know that's where I formed a lot of my bonds.
Me
You
too.
did, our brothers and everybody. And I'm very pro public.
Yeah.
I'm not against homeschooling or anything like that,
Right.
but I think they get to meet a lot of people and you form a lot of things. And I
And
think that's important in your life.
And if we have problems in the system, then you fix the system. You don't
Absolutely.
leave the system. You fix it so
And
everybody
you
can
kick
benefit.
somebody out that
Yeah, yeah.
that's not doing what they're
Yeah,
supposed to be doing
exactly.
as far as a teacher.
I think
or-
that's a lot of the problem. We're lax on accountability.
yeah.
We kind of get weak-kneed, and we don't hold people accountable like we should.
I tell you, I was held accountable by a lot of people in this town. If Mark and Susan got out of line, Jean Greer was there, Colleen Meyer was there, Dee and
Well,
Donna Lewis were there. My parents really didn't have to step in because I was going to get whammed by them first.
You probably were the most famous set of twins growing up in the 60s.
So,
Who could be any more famous than you two?
So, in my kindergarten class, we had the West, the Stockton twins,
Yeah,
the Youngs, 3 sets of twins in a kindergarten class.
Yeah.
That was pretty small.
yeah, that is kind of remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't recall having that many in my class the whole time. Later in the years. Both of you have always been involved in church, and you've done some mission work, haven't you? Done some mission stuff. Would you like to talk
Yeah.
about that for a minute?
Sure. When I was going to First Baptist in Lebanon, that's when we did our first mission trips. We went to Brazil several times. Kevin has gone to China several times. He was really hoping to get to do some physical therapy with the Olympics when they were in
Oh, wow.
China, but some company came in and offered several $1 million, and that was a lot of our price range. So
Yeah.
he got pushed aside. But since then, I've gotten very involved in disaster relief through the Baptist Association. I'm not able to do so much right now unless it's pretty local
Yeah.
because helping with mom and dad,
Yeah.
but have gone to many flooded areas, fire, went to Colorado a year ago or so when they had fires, and we did some ash out trying to find personal items for people. It was just devastating because at least with the flood, you can take out the ruined and the structure is still there and you can put new drywall up and new carpet in, but the fire is just devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Just everything was
Yeah,
gone. It's
yeah.
just something I had never experienced before.
I
But
bet that was tough.
anyway, that's just been, my heart is really in that. I just encourage everyone, and it doesn't have to be through the Baptist Association to do disaster relief, whether it's Convoy of Hope or through Samaritan's Purse. And there's so many different
Yes.
ways you can get involved, but
Right.
yeah, definitely have a heart for that now.
That's good. That's cool. And Susan, you've always been involved helping with the youth groups and so forth at church, and now you're on the Webster Electric Board.
I am. I started mission trips with Carolyn Thompson the first time we went to New York, and actually probably that was my first experience with homeless people
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and working in New York, and that was a huge eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I told the church back then, I tell them to this day, what an experience for a group of kids. I'll probably never get to do that again.
Right.
I've gone with your wife on mission trips. I've
Yeah.
gone with Coach Mack. And I'm kind of like Christy. That's kind of where my heart is.
Right.
Whether it's going down and rebuilding or what have you. Each one has their own unique problems and stuff, but that fulfills my soul.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Well, you always were very supportive of Melanie when she was your kid, for sure.
And I just cannot say enough about them. Kids, I've had parents say, well, my kids would never do that. You know, when you get them on a mission trip, all they want to do is work.
Yeah.
They really want to work. And they work.
It's a great experience for
It
kids.
is.
It really is. Teaches them a lot.
It is.
Speaking of fulfilling your heart and soul, let's talk about your grandkids and your daughters.
Oh
we
my
haven't talked
gosh.
about them
Oh
yet.
my God. So, you know, I was thinking about this the other day when Mallory graduated from high school, and it was graduation night. We're there, and they start the pomp and circumstance, and I just said, we did it. And I said, we honestly did it. And somebody said, well, did you not think you'd do it? I said, I didn't know. I didn't know. And we've had one graduate. And then college was great. They both went to college and graduated. And then actually I had my own little setup of everything I was doing. And when Mallory said she was pregnant, I was thinking, oh my, it's going to rock my world, because I had my... I
Wasn't in your
lake.
schedule yet.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm going to the lake. I don't have time for this. You know what? The grandkids they just stop you dead.
Yeah.
They stop you dead.
Yeah.
And I take them any minute I can. And sorry, Mallory and Katie, but you just lost out. You just lost out.
That's awesome.
The grandkids.
Yeah,
are
that's great.
Yeah.
It is. It's
it is
probably
wonderful.
the most.
It is wonderful.
The most important accomplishment that we do in life is to.
It is, and you know,
get the-
Christy and Kevin didn't have kids, but they also fulfill their lives in other ways.
Well,
I mean, kids are great
Right.
and everything, and grandkids are great, but you know, you can find such happiness in serving.
Yes.
And I think that is one thing that I'd like to see people maybe get more involved with.
Right.
Serve in your community, serve in your church, serve in your school. There's
That's
so many
exactly
ways
right.
you can
Right.
serve.
And of course, Christy, you and I serve on the Marshfield Public School Foundation together, and that's a great organization. I've been on it since I think 1998, which seems impossible now, but we've not that I do a whole lot, but it's a great group to knowing that you're helping students to fulfill or further their education, and of course the teacher grant program, and for a long time. They had this facility that we tried to keep alive, which we did, and now Melanie and I are trying to keep it alive. So a lot of things there that give you that fulfillment, Susan, you're talking about.
Well, and Susan's husband Rex has been president
Yes,
of the
that's right.
foundation.
That's
and
right.
has
And he's
done a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
And so busy with work, but finds time to do this as well. And I so appreciate his leadership in that.
Yep. He does a great job, and we appreciate it too, because he takes a lot of the work off of what we would have to be doing. Some of us. And then you have your horses, and so that desire to have horses has never left, and you've got a nice horse barn out there.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it very much. I actually was able, when we moved to Bolivar after Lebanon, we were there 4 years before we moved back here, and we sold everything because we just could not find any property, and so I gave everything up, which I thought, oh, I'll be okay with that. And anyway, started looking for land, and then when we found out we were going to move back here, but I was able to buy 2 of 4 horses that I had previously owned.
Really?
Yes.
That's
So,
kinda
and
neat.
it was nice because I already knew them. I knew what
Yeah.
I could do or couldn't do with them, and I'm at an age I'm not into teaching something new to a
Breaking
younger
new
horse. Yeah.
So how many do you have then?
I only have 2 now.
2 now.
Yeah, 2 have passed away, old
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
But anyway, I've got 2, and I am half tempted to breed them, but then part of me is like, 2's a nice number.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, but Susan and I, we ride together. When I first moved back, we rode a lot, and since then we just seem to get busy and haven't ridden as much. But we put them in the trailer and go out to J.L. Beckner's family's farm out there and ride out there, or just ride out past Trax Road,
Sure.
along the road, or Dad still has some land next to us that we ride on, and just kind of, we go to Compton Hollow.
Compton Hollow.
Yeah, go there occasionally, so just
Can you
wherever.
take a picture of her in her boots and hat sometime? I think that.
I don't wear hats.
She
I
rides
wear
in
boots. But let me
tennis
tell you. I get on a horse,
with a step stool.
but I don't care. But 2 hours after riding a horse, when you get off, It's a whole nother story.
You're ready to get off.
Kind of molded. And it's a bite getting down.
Like when we were teenagers,
Yeah, we were out at Beckner's and we found, they have an old barn out there. We found a slab of concrete so I could, one, get on the horse. The knees don't bend like they used to. And then getting off, I'm like, get me the slab of concrete so I can get off because this is going to really hurt.
Build a little set of steps, a platform.
You know, I played softball. We had been out of softball a number of years. I was teaching at Marshfield at the time, and somebody said, would you come play softball, a tournament? And I did. And I just loved it. I'd give anything to play another game of softball. It'd only be one game. That's about
Yeah.
all I could handle.
Well, I think
I
they
couldn't
have
stand
an
the next
alumni.
one. I was a little store.
I think they may have an alumni softball deal.
They
with
do.
with
They
the
do.
Cherry
And I
Blossom
thought
Festival.
about asking.
Yeah.
I thought about, but
Yeah.
I was so sore the last time I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk, couldn't sit, couldn't do anything. Every muscle in my body was like
We
paralyzed.
put one together with Reunion Fest too, if you want.
Oh, I tell you what, it would be so much fun to get together and play a game of softball.
Get the Bedford Street boys.
You know,
and
There you go.
absolutely. Or, you know, I used to play when the Kelowna team, the 18-wheelers, Kelowna
Yes,
18-wheelers
yeah,
played
yeah,
at Frisco.
yeah,
We
yeah.
played at Frisco for
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
And the Show Me team, they played
Right.
softball and stuff. And so Danny O'Neill
Yeah.
was the umpire for
yeah.
years there.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Marshfield, softball was a big deal in the
yes,
70s.
it was.
Really
Yes, it was.
Leagues, and then of course Stratford when they built that complex, and Lonnie Wilson had it, and Carolyn, and then Joey and Jenna Pate. I mean, there was a lot of people that went up there and played.
And you know, one of the other things I want to mention in high school was our plays with Greg Zeller.
Oh yeah.
So now I never was an actress or actor or anything like that or in the play. I was just behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
But the practices and everything that we had each night for weeks on end, that was
He
so
was a
much
hoot.
fun.
He was great.
Yeah, and he was excellent.
He really was.
And we had a lot of good people that could do all that, and that was really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, we did in our era as well. Yeah, absolutely. So I had a text message, Susan, a few minutes ago, and this person could not believe that you didn't mention growing up with the Meyer girls from Bedford Street.
oh, Sharon must have texted.
I thought we did say the Myers
don't know.
and the
Yeah, but-
Arthurs and.
Well, but
So let me tell you about growing up with the
I
Myers.
know
Oh
there's
my
some
gosh.
special stories out there.
Oh,
that you
there are
probably
some
should touch
stories.
upon. Since it's been brought up now, would be a great time to do that.
So I tell you what, bless Bob Meyer's heart. So they always took me
Yeah,
camping.
now tell them who they are. Bob and Colleen.
So Bob
yeah.
and Colleen Meyer, and then Rhonda and Sharon.
Yeah,
And
Colleen was the school secretary.
yes, she was.
years.
And Bob
Sharon's
worked
married
for
to
the
Andy
highway
Fraker.
department.
Yeah,
Sharon's
uh-huh.
married to Andy Fraker, and Rhonda is now in Springfield.
Mhm.
And they would take me camping, and they taught me skiing and everything like that. But there are so many stories about that. I remember one time the camper was sitting in Bob and Colleen's driveway. And so Sharon and I were going to spend the night in the camper. And I swear, I think if you even breathed loudly, Bob Meyer was at the door checking on us. But Roger Replogle came over.
Oh, surely not.
And he's sitting inside, and we were just talking and visiting and stuff. And Bob Meyer, y'all going to bed? Knocking on the thing, and we're trying to get Roger out there. They don't know he's there. We're trying to get him out. We're just shooting stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I tell you what.
And you guys, didn't you room together in college too? In Springfield?
did.
Yeah.
Oh, those stories shall remain quiet.
Those will not
But
leave.
that-
I also roomed with my sister-in-law, Joe Monisher.
Oh, yeah.
And those stories remain quiet. Oh my, yeah.
I'm kind of glad I went away for college.
I should have gone away for college, but I didn't. I'll never forget one time my dad called myself and my brother home. He was in Kansas City, and we both drove in, and we got in trouble because we were overdrawing at the bank. John Bell Greer had notified my dad that the accounts were overdrawn. And I said to my dad, so I can't come. I got class. I don't care what you got, you get down here. So I didn't know my brother Mark was even coming down. And then he's going in when I'm going. I said, why are you here? And he goes, I don't know, why are you here? And then we were both overdrawn. And I said, "Will you call me in the future and let me know if you're low, and I'll call you." And, oh, we got in so much trouble. And that's just overdrawn. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mark was he did pretty well himself. He was the trainer for the national jury team that
He
Sheriff Hall
was.
played
He
on.
was.
What was that, 79?
Ye-
78 or 9?
No, so he
No?
went to Kansas City first, then he came back.
Then he came back.
So it was in the early 80s that he was
Okay.
at Detroit.
Yeah. But
And then he went on to Pittsburgh State and got his master's. And I think there was a time when he studied under the Chiefs
oh yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
he's in sports. I mean, he sells artificial
Right.
fields and stuff all over the United States and stuff. So
I also heard that you somebody said that you've kind of got a little side business of washing and waxing cars. Is that right?
who are you talking to? You know, when I retired from teaching, I didn't know what I was going to do.
Uh-huh.
And so I would call people up and say, "Can I wash your car?" I did Rick and Miriam Siebert's quite often. And I would do different people's because I love to mow a yard and I love to wash and wax a car. And so, I mean, until I got involved and I got with more involved with the church,
Uh-huh.
more involved. I got on Webster Electric.
Yeah.
I got on Webco Custom Ministries. It's now Webco SWI
Oh yeah.
out
Are
of
you on
Springfield.
that now?
Uh-huh.
Are you?
I've been on there for 6 years
I didn't
now.
realize
I
that.
served a time, and then after a period of time, I got off for a couple of years, and then they asked if I would come back, so I came back onto that.
I see.
And so,
We missed the recycling, by the way. You probably know that.
so I've really been fighting to get that.
You know, I don't care if it's just the cardboard. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand the glass didn't pay. But we need a place to take cardboard. There's too much cardboard going in these dumpsters.
well, the problem
and
was there's no
I'd do
place,
it out here if I had
no
a
place to take the cardboard
I-
at the time.
I
Was
know,
what we
I
were
know,
told.
I know.
I have seen trucks, semis here gathering cardboard here. I'm not sure where they're going with it. I would actually like to see the city take on the recycling and maybe use some of the workers from Webco
Yeah. Well,
to do
you
it.
know, Warren Beck started that whole program
That's
out
right.
there, and I just think we owe it to guys like Warren and those that have went ahead of us that built that program. I'd do my part if I had a building. I'd do it here. I don't care if you could just sell enough cardboard bales to pay for one guy feeding it. That's all I would ask for. You know, wouldn't have to make any money at it. And I think there's a responsibility by community to do that. So
Right now,
that's my 2 cents.
we're kind of under the jurisdiction of SWI, so they're the ones out of Springfield
I
that
know,
would have to
I know,
agree to it.
I know.
I would love to do it. Alan Dennis and Donnie Stockton are huge proponents
Yes.
of recycling, and Donnie picks up a lot of cardboard for
Yeah.
people and takes it to Springfield for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And so I do think a town of this size,
Well, if you
Could
want
happen.
to pursue that, and you need a little mini committee or something, if Donnie or Alan, I'd be happy to work with that because I think it's really important.
Mhm.
And so anyway, that's
I
Never
do
happened.
know Webco would not be totally against it. They just got to have a buyer for the stuff.
right.
And, we had all the equipment stuff, but SWI's pretty much shut all that down.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, it's happening all over the state, so it can happen here. It's
Right.
just a matter of will and want to.
right. I think that's it, the matter of the wheel.
So what's in the future for you two? What do you guys see for the future? Continue being good grandma and being a good.
We're going to be
Person.
national pickleball players.
Oh yeah, tell me about pickleball. Yeah, tell me about
Go
pickleball.
ahead.
That's
Go ahead.
something I'm interested in
Yeah.
hearing more about because I hear it's really a growing
Yeah.
phenomenon.
Well, the funny thing is, we taught at Lebanon ever since I have been there, which I started in '94.
You taught pickleball back
Yeah, back at the junior high. So it was nothing new to us. But a little over a year ago, one day I just thought, wonder if there's a place to play. There wasn't. So I just went to our pastor and said, hey, I've got my own net. I've got paddles. Could I just holler at some ladies and see if they would be interested in playing some pickleball inside our Kicker Life Center? And he
Uh-huh.
said, yeah, sure. So Mondays and Thursdays, 11:30. And the reason we have 11:30 is because we have a daycare at the church,
Right.
and they're either eating or sleeping during that time. So
Sure.
the gym's available.
Yeah.
But it's great playing inside because you don't have to worry about the weather or anything. But they've allowed us to play there, and we started out with just 4 or 5 of
Yeah.
us, and now sometimes we have up to 15
Really?
playing. Yeah.
Now,
so-
is this the same group that's been playing at the park?
well, some of them are, yes.
I know
And
Mike
Virgil,
Westby
who
plays.
kind of started
Yeah.
the pickleball group, also goes to First Baptist.
Yeah,
But in the winter, I guess he and his wife
yeah,
travel wherever where it's warmer, and so they're not doing so much at the park because of the weather and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was doing in the evenings a couple of times, and then Friday mornings. And his is co-ed, which is great. But we just wanted ladies so we could just
right.
do our own thing, not
Right,
have to
right.
worry about getting cleaned up.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
worrying about someone being there. But anyway, it's just been great exercise, good socialization, and Susan and I signed up for a league in Seymour that starts here soon,
Yeah.
really soon.
How
So
big does the
Coach
court have
Lewis
to be?
taught it at the high school, and even Katie, when she was in high school, that's where she started
played.
learning it, and that's where I heard about it. And then it kind of picked up. A friend of mine in Branson was playing it, and so I said, well, I'll come down. So I bought one of Coach Lewis's paddles, and I got to where I was driving twice a week to Branson to play
Yeah.
until Christy came, and then got it going here. And so now we're becoming contenders, aren't we?
Yeah. So how big does the court have to be?
22 by, you would ask, 22 by 40, 22 by 44, something
Double,
like
yeah,
that.
double that.
Yeah.
Half of a basketball court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like racquetball or sort of like
It's like tennis, only
Tennis.
a
And
smaller
ping
only
pong.
court.
smaller,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ping pong.
Smaller
Yeah.
court. Uh-huh. I never was good at tennis, and there was a lot of chasing it. I
Yeah.
just wasn't good at it. I find pickleball just very, very fun.
How many plays on a team?
Usually you play partners,
Two?
but yes.
2 and 2?
Yes.
2 and 2.
But you can play singles, but that's pretty tough.
I bet.
But
Yeah.
and then if we have an odd number, sometimes we play with 3 and we'll do what we call cutthroat. And the
Uh-huh.
one who's by themselves, the 2 on this side have to hit it to the court
Yeah.
that they're on. So you have to work on your placement a little bit better. But
Right.
that way you can still play and not 3 people sitting around while they're waiting for a game to be over or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
But we got several people. Name some of the people that we play against with the school here.
Lori Lippy,
Yes.
Mhm.
Tammy Mackey Bennett, Renee Keeler Lamb,
Renee Keeler's a lamb.
Uh-huh.
So, and then Becky.
Becky
Hyder.
Hyder,
Becky
Becky
Hyder.
Krieger
Okay.
Hyder
Yeah.
plays.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then from Niagara, Cindy,
Yeah, Cindy Templeton.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Cindy Ballard
So-
Templeton.
We rotate in, rotate out, and they can play 3 courts at the First Baptist Church, and so therefore we've got 12 playing, and if we need to, we do 1 court, 2 court, 3 courts, whatever we need.
That's great.
Yeah.
We do have
Good fun.
a
Good exercise.
time.
It
Yes,
is.
it is.
Good.
Yes, it is. Anybody can play. It doesn't cost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, ladies, we got about 2 minutes left. Any final thoughts? Anything great
You know,
philosophical?
I've gone on a tour with you and this building and stuff, and of course we've got the donut shop and we've got the arcade and
Uh-huh.
stuff, and then we've got all the stuff that goes on down there in the
Uh-huh.
gym with your wife and stuff. And it's unique that you take an old building like this and are able to do all that's being done. I know what your future wishes are, maybe on some of this, and I just walk in here and I expect to see George Ballard sitting there, and Larry Anderson,
Yeah.
and Rick Siebert, and
Mr. Lewis.
Mr.
Uh,
Lewis,
Mrs. Lewis,
absolutely,
yeah.
Mrs. Lewis,
You know,
Frank Brandstetter.
I was probably the worst typer in my class.
No, that'd been me.
Really? I
That'd
think
been
I
me.
might have hit 30 words a minute if I was lucky. You know, she could probably type, 100 and something.
No.
But
Oh, I'm sure
anyway,
she could.
but I ended up in life, typing became a very, very important part of our life, all of our
Yeah.
lives. Let's face it. And I'm a decent typer, but I mean, it took years of practice. But who would have
So-
ever thought when we had to take typing because you had to fill that elective?
Yeah.
I would never thought I would have ever
Well,
used typing.
and Becky Hyder's husband, Randy,
Yeah.
commented a few weeks ago that Mom was his typing
Yeah.
teacher, and his first job he got because he could type.
Good type.
So
yeah.
that was a neat
That
story.
is neat, yeah.
It's interesting working at Rex's office because, and this doesn't speak of anybody in particular,
Uh-huh.
certainly won't use any names, it's not anybody we have now.
Right.
How many, I mean, I did the office management and all that stuff and learned things, how to file and stuff. And alphabetize, you wouldn't think alphabetizing would be such a big thing, but when you have an MC McLarson or something like
Yeah.
that, You know how many people cannot
Can't do that.
alphabetize? Oh
Yeah,
my.
that is.
And
And of course now, don't want to talk about generational issues, but
Right.
you know, they can't, poor young people can't write in cursive, they can't sign their name, they print their name.
Yeah.
Brilliant kids, brilliant when it comes to electronics or IT or computers, but they can't do cursive, you know. And
Or
I
read
just-
it.
Yeah, I just think that's really sad that
Yeah.
we're not. I mean, I understand, you know, there's only so much you can teach, but in the third grade, what's more important than maybe multiplication tables and writing cursive? You know, I don't know. You're a teacher, Susan. You would know, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I tell you, one of the funniest stories I remember is we were working on some type of essay project for an English teacher here at the high school, and we were allowed to leave the school and go to the library and do your documentation. And I was with somebody, probably Sharon Fraker, Sharon Meyer Fraker, but I had a convertible, a Chrysler convertible. Well, we didn't use all our time at the library, so we went and got milkshakes. And we came back. We're sitting out here to the west of the building along the gym, and here comes George Ballard up the sidewalk. I said, "Oh my God, we got to get rid of these milkshakes." So we threw them underneath the seat. And I think that the temperature turned like 95 that day. Do you know what milk does on a 95 day on
yeah.
a carpeted car?
Oh.
But he did not catch us. We did go back to class. We did look like we were good students. Oh, I had to take the car and I had to take the car to the car wash, put the top down, and just let it go through. Because I don't think I ever got that milk out of there.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
I know you've got hundreds of those kind of stories, and that's probably one of the mildest stories that you would have.
I
If you
can
could-
tell some.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up. It's 2:02, so thank you all very much for coming today. It's fun, wasn't it?
It was.
It's gonna be. We'll do it again, and
Thank you.
best to your mom and dad, Christy.
Thank you.
Hope everything goes good there, and we just appreciate you coming in and sharing
You're welcome.
some good
You're
times.
very
with us.
welcome.
Thanks
All
for
right.
asking.
You bet. All right.